This week on Talking Pictures, I sit down with noted New York filmmaker Edward Burns. We talk about his latest movie, Finnegan's Foursome, which actually takes Burns and crew for the first time out of town to Ireland. We look back on his long career and how he started making movies with his first film, The Brothers McMullen. Plus, we talk extensively about his love for New York City. We've got all that in a fascinating and revealing interview coming up. I'm Neil Rosen, and welcome to Talking Pictures. Writer, director, and actor Edward Burns has been making beloved indie films for over 30 years, beginning with the heartwarming 1995 comedy, The Brothers McMullen. His latest film is called Finnegan's Foursome. It's about two rival brothers and their grown children who travel to Ireland to honor their late father's final wish, scattering his ashes on the coastal golf courses he loved. What starts out with old grudges and family tensions turns into a funny and heartfelt journey of healing and reconnection.
I was thinking about what your grandfather's purpose was and having us all come to Ireland and get together like this. It's not about who wins, it's about having fun, and more importantly, it's about us being together as a family.
I really enjoyed Finnegan's Foursome. Most of the movie centers around golf as well as relationships. Yep. Are you yourself an avid golfer?
I have become an avid golfer in the last 5 years. You want the full long story of sort of how it started, because it's kind of connected to the movie.
Yeah.
My mother, unfortunately, passes away during COVID from COVID. I'm sure everyone remembers at the time that, you couldn't have a service because we couldn't get together, right? So my mom was cremated. We had, down in Florida, I had the ashes brought back up to New York and had them with me. And my dad just wasn't, at that time, in a state of mind to kind of figure out, what he wanted to do with the ashes and where my mom would be buried. All right. And again, we're in no hurry to figure it out because you can't have a service at our Catholic church in Long Island.
Because of the pandemic.
Because of the pandemic. Finally, let's say it's a year later, we get the green light. We can have a service with just our immediate family. None of my cousins, no aunts and uncles, like literally just like 10 of us. So we're going to have the service. And I come up with an idea that, since we're not going to be doing a burial afterwards, since we haven't, figured that part out, why don't we take mom's ashes? I'm going to bring them around to every spot in New York that was important to her, and we'll distribute some ashes, and then we'll hold on to the rest of them to bury them at a later time.
So did you get the idea with the ashes, if you said that you wanted to spread them to places?
So I'll get to the movie.
Right, to places that were near and dear to your mom. That's sort of the theme of your movie.
Yeah.
Where your character's father wants 4 specific places,
Yeah.
2 golf courses and the 2 other places,
Yeah, so I'll give you the short version of the answer. So anyhow, after my mom dies, came through the service, we take her ashes and we bring them to a number of important spots in her life. The house we grew up in, Long Island, the church where she was baptized and where she and my father were married, and her childhood home off the concourse in the Bronx. And then her high school up on 65th and Lex, St. Vincent's Ferrera.
Did you put them on the sidewalk in the Bronx? Did you actually go into the...
We went into the lobby of the building and threw them in the lobby. We went to St. Angela's Church. Nobody was around. We took a fistful of ashes, threw them up on the altar.
Right.
Like great New York stories. Anyhow, a year later, when we could kind of laugh about what we did, I started to think, there's something in that maybe I can use for a screenplay one day. All right. So then your first question was, am I an avid golfer? When my mom died, I decided to pick up golf because my dad is a junkie golfer. He plays all the time. He's going to be 89 in a month, and he still plays. So I was like, I'm going to pick up the game to hang out with him. So after about a year of playing golf and getting addicted and wanting to go out every day, my wife made a joke. So like, are you ever going to work again? Or is this just what you do now? You play golf. And that kind of gives me the idea, you know what I need to do? I need to figure out how to make a golf movie. So with those two ideas in hand, I came up with this story that, um, an American family whose father is from Ireland.
Did you remember to bring the ashes?
What are you talking about? I wasn't supposed to bring the ashes. You were supposed to bring the ashes. That was the deal.
When did that become the deal? I don't remember discussing that.
Oh, yeah, no, we discussed it at length. Because remember, I'm against the whole ashes thing. I wanted the proper burial, a service at a church with a priest and a headstone, not just throwing ashes around willy-nilly.
I thought it would be easier than lugging an urn around to all these different locations, so I separated the ashes into these 4 separate bags.
The whole point of the movie is a sort of an American family that goes back to the motherland, to the old sod, if you will, where their father, not even just their ancestors, but their father and mother are from. And part of it is this family kind of needs to heal. And that healing kind of takes place back there. Not just the fact that it's Ireland, where where their blood is from, if you will, but also the healing nature, for people who play golf. If you don't play, you don't get it. But if you do play, there is something that happens when you're walking with your family in nature. You're not looking at your phone. You're just sort of focused on one another. And it is, we say these are spiritual rituals. And if you don't play the game, people just don't get it. But it is kind of healing. So I knew that's kind of what I wanted to try and capture in the film.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Fightin' Finnegan's Cup. First on the tee, we have 15-time runner-up, 0-time winner, Freddie Finnegan.
Well, that ends today, young blood.
Were those, I won't say stunt guys, but
No.
skilled golfers hitting those shots, and then you would just
No.
were you
We
all
like I said, I became a junkie golfer. So I mean, like any actor would do. Like if you had to, if you're going to play a guitar player, you would have hopefully longer than 6 months. In this case, it took about 2 years to get the movie made. So I had 2 years to get my swing in shape where I look like someone who knows how to play golf well enough. Brian Muller, who plays my son in the movie, he's a legit, really good golfer. And that's, like I knew his
What
swing.
about Erica?
So interesting story with Erica Hernandez, who plays my niece, plays Brian Darcy James's niece. She had never played before. But she's an incredible actor, had done training as a dancer. So we found a golf instructor in LA, and I basically said, please don't let her hit a golf ball for the first 3 months. Teach her the swing the way you would teach someone how to dance. It is a choreographed sequence of movements. She never needs to hit the ball in the movie. We can correct that digitally afterwards. If the swing looks legit, everyone will buy the result. And that's what they did. So she has a gorgeous swing.
Straight for the trap.
Tough break, Lady B. But do you see my ball? Oh, I think it's up there 40 yards ahead
Okay.
in the
all
fairway.
right.
You know what your grandfather would do to me if I was playing as well as you were? That's when he would start with his psychological warfare, Little comments, big insults, anything to get inside my head and totally screw up my round.
It's true, he would torture your father. But then again, Freddie was an easy mark because he'd get upset, he'd hit a really shot, and then he'd slam his clubs, he'd curse, he'd scream, he'd cry like a little angry baby, and then eventually he would lose the match. Oh, he would also throw his putter.
Tell me about your relationship with Brian Darcy James. You've done 5 movies,
Yeah.
including Finnegan, including this. How did this start, and how did you forge a business, a movie relationship? I don't know if it's a off-screen camaraderie as well.
I met Brian Darcy James when a mutual actor friend of ours, Marcia Bennett, recommended him for a small part in a movie I made a long time ago called The Fitzgerald Family Christmas. Brian came in, did us a favor for a day, was willing to work for nothing on that film. And he and I just kind of hit it off. So, over the course of however many years later, Anytime, I'm writing something, I kind of think of him for one of the parts. Um, Knowing that Brian golfed, when I was putting this film together, I thought, you know what, maybe why don't I see if Brian would want to do this? And only afterwards, after he said yes, like one of my favorite scenes in the movie is when we're at the Irish pub and there's a trad session going on and the band is singing and the kids get up and they sing a little bit of the Parting Glass. Um, Only after Brian was attached to the script, I was like, "Hey, Brian, you know that scene where the kids sing? How would you feel about getting up and singing a little bit?" And if people don't know, Brian Darcy James has been nominated for 5 Tonys.
Well,
He's
it's
never won. The guy's got one of the best voices on Broadway. So when we shot that scene in Ireland, it was pretty incredible to see our all Irish crew. After the first take, you look around and everyone's got tears in their eyes. Like that's how beautiful that rendition was that he did.
They're sorry for my going away, and all the sweethearts that e'er I've had, they'd wish me one more day to stay. But since it fell into my lot that I should rise and you should not, I'll gently rise and I'll softly call good night and joy be with you all. Good night and joy be with you all.
Tell me about your connection to New York. We're both native New Yorkers. What do you love about the city, and why did you choose to? I raised my daughter here. Why
Yep.
did you choose to raise your kids? And do they, now that they're older, do they live in New York as well?
My daughter graduates from NYU tomorrow.
Congratulations.
Yeah, pretty great. I mean, funny story. Like her freshman year dorm was about 500 yards from her grammar school, to give you an idea of like how much of a New Yorker my kids are. My family was the Bronx and the West Side, and then Queens, and then we were in Woodside. Then we moved out to Valley Stream, Long Island. I went to college at Hunter College on 68th and Lex. My first job was at Channel 5 over on 67th Street, over in your hood. And I never at any point wanted to leave. Like we were raised, when we got out to Valley Stream, Long Island, both of my parents were like, you need to always look west. Like my house was 1 block from the Long Island Railroad train station.
By Green Acres?
Like about a mile from Green Acres, exactly. So it was like, get on the train and get into the city. And that's what I've been doing my whole life. I moved in 90 and I lived in LA for like 2 years after Saving Private Ryan. Loved LA, had a great time there. But as a New Yorker, I just knew I prefer New York and wanted to get home to New York.
So what I know that it's a big plot point, Ireland, in your movie, but as a filmmaker who's made many movies in New York,
Yep.
is it becoming not financially feasible to make a movie in New York now as it is?
No. There's still a very good tax incentive in New York City and New York State. New Jersey has a very good tax incentive as well. So the 2 movies that I made, bookending Finnegan's Foursome, I made a movie called Millers in Marriage, and then I made my brother's McMullen sequel, Family McMullen. We shot both of those in New York and New Jersey. There are, quite honestly, some better incentives right now. So, everyone's hopeful that, that production will return to New York. But, unfortunately for those of us who aren't on that side of the business, we have to follow where the money is, So
Will you still shoot your movie? I mean, I know this is the whole plot of this movie is returning to Ireland to honor your your father, your character's
Yeah.
father. Do you still plan on shooting movies in New
Oh,
York,
without a doubt. Yeah,
despite
yeah,
what the tax situation is? Or are you gonna go to like North Carolina or something?
No, no, no. I look. I mean, even before there was a great tax incentive, I always felt strongly that I make. I'm a New York storyteller. I make New York movies. Like we made a movie years ago called Sidewalks of
I
New
love
York.
that movie.
Oh,
I
thank you.
love that
Yeah.
movie.
In order to shoot that movie in New York, we had to make it for $1 million. Like, there was a conversation about taking it up to Toronto and, let's say getting a lot more bang out of the buck. And I was like, you can't make Sidewalks of New York in Toronto. Then, why don't you let me make it up to you, Look, why don't we, we go in here, get a cup of coffee, and we can talk, and... What, am I coming on too strong?
You've shot so many movies here.
Yep.
Is it easier to shoot here than it is, or harder to shoot here than shooting like somewhere in Ireland? You have those vast golf courses and stuff like that. Or
It's apples and oranges. So, like a golf film in Ireland, it had to take place in Ireland, and that has its own set of challenges because you're dealing with weather comes in and out, and you get all 4 seasons in one afternoon sometimes. Quite honestly, shooting in New York has its other challenges. Like it is loud, it is busy, but like that's what you want on screen. If you're telling a New York story, you want the energy of the city. The absolute greatest part, the 2 parts of that are shooting in New York that cannot be replicated anywhere else, is we have the best crews, hands down. So if you not to knock crews in Toronto or Ireland or elsewhere, but like we have the best of the best here. And the second, it is the greatest base of actors on the planet. So you have a doorman who's got 1 line, a waitress who's got 1 line. Those are folks who are so talented. They have done so much. And that's why I've always wanted to stay in New York and make movies, because you're pulling from the greatest talent resource we have in the business.
back in the day when it came out, I saw your first movie, The Brothers McMullen. How in the world, it was a shoestring budget. I don't know if it was renegade filmmaking, if you even had permits to shoot, I don't know.
No permits. $25,000. We shot 12 days over the course of 8 months as I'd raise a little money. It was a 3-man crew. I had worked at a satellite office in New York for Entertainment Tonight, which was basically a news crew. So, you'd have a cameraman, you remember these days, cameraman, sound operator, and a PA. And we shot all over the city covering every event. So I was like, okay, well, if ET can do it, and I was the PA, I was like, we'll make a movie with the same size crew. Yeah. And that's what we did. But never asked for any permits, because I knew, I'm sure you had this experience. You do a man on the street interview, no cop is coming up to you and asking you, hey, can I see your permit? You're not allowed to be on this corner. And I had an advantage that my old man was a New York City cop. So on the one occasion when we were shooting in Central Park that somebody said, hey, do you have permits here? I said, hey, officer, my old man is Sergeant Ed Burns. He goes, oh, okay, yeah, sorry, no worries. Just make sure you wrap it up in an hour.
That's great. How hard was it back then to get distribution, and how much harder I know you're not starting out now, for somebody starting out to get distribution today,
It feels like now the kind of business is back to where it was when I started in the early 90s, in that, there were only a handful of distribution companies that were buying and distributing sort of small indie films. As we hit the late 90s and a lot of the movies, including mine, went on to some theatrical success, we had this kind of indie boom. And then all of a sudden, Warner Brothers had an independent label, Paramount had Paramount Classics, there was a boom. And we had, a good 10 years of that. And then Netflix shows up on the scene, and Amazon. And all of a sudden at film festivals, little indie movies are selling for millions of dollars. And the business got very big. And, there was a lot of work for all of us, which was great. The business post-COVID has now gotten much smaller. People's viewing habits have changed dramatically. Angelica's still there, but Lincoln Square is gone. All of the little art houses on Long Island where my first couple of movies played, they're all gone. So the business went from being tiny to huge, and now it's tiny again.
You've stayed in it pretty much predominantly in the independent film world. although you were in the complete opposite end of the spectrum when you were in Saving Private Ryan, which is I can't think of something more opposite to the independent film world than that particular film. Did you ever, I mean, when you became successful, Brothers McMullen, and then several films after that, did you ever, toy with the idea of, making a big budget, I won't say Hollywood film because you'd probably shoot it in New York anyway, but that's okay. But let's just, for the terminology, a big budget, Hollywood style movie.
I would say so. The year after Private Ryan, so that's 98, 99, I would say every 2 years, I have tried to get a bigger budgeted film made and just have been unsuccessful. For any number of reasons. You can't either get the movie star attached to get the financing, or you got the star attached, but then you couldn't get the financing. So I probably had, 4 or 5 good run-ups to almost getting bigger films made. Now, I'm not going to be making like a Marvel film, but let's say like a bigger drama. That's kind of what I wanted to do. And that's still absolutely on my goals that I need to do.
And it's just you can't get the financing.
You just can't get the financing.
So you wouldn't mind doing a big budget thing.
Yeah, of course.
You did the Jennifer Aniston film, and Friends was on for a couple of years. I don't know if she was at the height of.
She was. That was after season 1 of Friends.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And we made that movie for $3 million.
Okay.
So
she
which was still great. I mean, happy to have
the
Jennifer.
box office draw that she later became. In the,
but it's like the thing that I've done is I love what I do. And I really like working. So I am not one of those filmmakers who will, you'll hear these stories and I'm always like, hats off to the folks that do this. It took them 8 years to get the movie made, because they were so determined to get that particular film made that they wait and the cast fell apart and they put the cast together and they get the money. And then it comes to the big screen. It's a great success. I don't know what I would do with myself if I didn't work for 8 years. Like, I'm trying to get a movie made. We hit the roadblock. Screw it. Done with that. I got a movie we can make for $3 million. Let's go make that. And then when I finish that film, we'll try and get the big one made again. And then if we hit the roadblock again, pivot, go make another movie.
Did you ever, you're an auteur. Did you ever consider, other than, I know you acted in the Spielberg movie, but did you ever consider being a gun for hire and being a director for hire, and or it's got to be, my material. I wrote these words.
When I first went to school, I wanted to be a novelist. That was the initial dream. I told you earlier, I finally got and wrote my first novel. I have the second one coming out in October. Yeah, so the second novel is called The Marlboro Road Gang, and that's a second in a trilogy for the first novel that came out, which was called A Kid from Marlboro Road. So, as someone who came at this, the big dream was to be a writer. That's what I love doing. Like I write every day.
That's your acting, directing,
down.
writing.
Writing, hands down. I love directing. I love acting, but they don't even come close to how much I love.
So,
writing.
if you wanted to be a writer, if that was the dream, how did you fall into movie making?
I took if you were an English major, you could become a film studies minor. I was not a great student. My academic advisor said, you need to get your GPA up. You're an English major. You can take these film appreciation classes, watch some old movies, get an A, write a paper, get an A, get your GPA up. So the first class I took, it was called like 4 American directors, or 4 Hollywood directors. But the first film I saw in that class was Billy Wilder's The Apartment. All right. I sit there blown away. And the professor's talking about Billy Wilder, the writer-director. I was not a cinephile. I didn't grow up loving movies. So I raised my hand. I'm like, I'm sorry, can you explain to me, what does that mean he's the writer-director? He's like, well, he wrote the screenplay and he directed it. And it's like, so like he makes the choice. Are we going to shoot color, or in this case, black and white? Are we going to cast Shirley MacLaine and Jack Lemmon? He's the guy that makes all those decisions. So in addition to writing the story, he makes the movie, if you will. He makes all those creative decisions. I did not know that that was a job. I didn't know that that was something that was available to do with your life at that point. And I sat there in that classroom. I could still see where I was sitting. I was like, okay, that's what I'm going to do.
Do you have, what are some of your favorite films?
Last Picture Show is the movie that
Really?
that my dream is to make an ensemble about a town, multi-generational, about class, in the way that film Like that's for me, that's the high watermark. Other than that, I have some obvious choices like Godfather 1 and 2 and Goodfellas. Like just those three together, that's movie heaven.
Do you enjoy the acting part of it? And is it hard to direct yourself as an actor?
No, no. Any actor will tell you, like you kind of, when you're doing a scene with other actors, a lot of times when the director calls cut, we'll all look at one another and be like, oh yeah, that was the take. You know, like you feel it, like you play music. So you know when you're playing with other musicians and you inadvertently just fall into the pocket and you are communicating telepathically, right? Whatever that weird thing that happens to you when you're on set acting. And you just, everyone knows that's the take. So when I'm directing myself with other actors, I'm operating on instinct, looking for when we fell into the pocket.
Oh, you got the old man in my friggin' eye.
Are you okay?
No, I'm not okay. What?
Careful. No, I
what
see it right
are
there.
you doing? All of a sudden, you turned into our mother? Can we just please play some golf? All right, thank you. We're done with the ashes and the ritual.
Finnegan's Foursome will be available to rent or buy on digital on June 19th. I'm Neil Rosen, and we'll see you next time on Talking Pictures.